MLB.com's Anthony DiComo, reports that the Mets will shut down Kodai Senga for the rest of the spring training with a strain in his pitching shoulder. The Mets have announced a timetable for his return, but he is likely to be on the injured list for the first month of the regular season. Senga injured his shoulder this morning after sitting out workouts yesterday with arm fatigue. We've seen this before. David Stern says he doesn't expect Senga's injury to cause them to trade or sign any other starting pitchers. Senga was projected to be the ace of the Mets rotation this season after trading Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander at the trade deadline. Senga had a 2.98 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP, 77 walks, 202 strikeouts, and 166 innings pitched last season. I wanted to see what Senga was going to do his second year, his sophomore year, because I said it to you, Speedy. I believe Senga was going into the season last year. I thought he was going to be the best pitcher for the Mets. I did, because the way he pitches, the way he deceives and hides the ball, I thought teams and a lot of a lot of hitters were going to have problems seeing him and seeing the ball. And now you're going into your second year. That's when we see these Japanese pitchers either fall off. Look at Tanaka. Masahiro Tanaka was a good major league pitcher for the Yankees, but his first year, he was dominant. His second year, his sophomore year, wasn't as good. And maybe because of the partial tear in his UCL, he never got the surgery. Maybe it was that. But teams started to see him more and more. They had video. They had footage of him. And they can watch the way he deceives and he throws the ball. Now, Jacob deGrom, now obviously he's not a Japanese pitcher. Jacob deGrom pitched the same way he did for years, and people couldn't read his pitches, couldn't find his curveball, couldn't find his changeup, which he had probably the most dominant changeup I've ever seen. So and something what Senga is good at, his number one pitch is his changeup, and it's very deceiving, but I wanted to see him in his sophomore year. Now you're missing him for a year. For a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months with the shoulder fatigue. That usually, we've heard this, but believe it or not, there's a Yankee pitcher that's on this Mets rotation in Severino. We heard shoulder fatigue, and then we heard shoulder surgery. Then he came back, and then he had a UCL tear, and he was out a significant amount of time. This is not a good sign for the New York Mets.
And fatigue is the other thing that dealt with Noah Syndergaard for a while with his shoulder. And he's a bigger, different body type. He's a lot bigger than Senga, so it's not ideal for that, especially this season. He decided to randomly work out and show off his muscles, and then he gets hurt again. But nevertheless, definitely not a good sign when it comes to somebody like Senga. That the Mets did well in certain instances of not pitching him as many innings, but still they're going to have to do it more because they don't have a lot of other trustworthy options in this rotation. If you're going to take another step as a major league pitcher, especially Senga, who's older too, I think he's 30 years old, and again, he's not coming in with a lot. He's coming in with a lot of miles on his arm from Japan. That's not going to help.
Lots of miles.
That's not going to help his cause long term for what the Mets need him to be, which they need him to be an ace realistically.
Just think about this. Yamamoto, he came in Japan. He became a professional at the age of 15 years old. 15 years old, he was a professional pitcher in Japan.
Yep.
How old is Yamamoto right now? He's 25 years old.
Right.
He's 25. Look at how much stress he has on that shoulder, on that elbow, on that arm. Okay. Now, we've seen this with Ohtani. He's a fantastic pitcher, fantastic hitter. And even if Ohtani never pitches again, he's a fantastic power hitter. He's a two-dimensional type of player. So you don't need to see him pitch. He still dominates the game by the way he hits the ball, with power, with his batting average, with everything that he does in the game. When you look at these guys, when you look at Yamamoto, you look at Senga, and all these other guys that are coming up from Japan, they're pitchers. That's all they are. And when you look at the torque they have on their arms and the way they throw the ball, I've never seen Japanese pitchers are so the way they throw the ball is so deceiving. Okay, they hide the ball so much by the way they throw their changeups and their curveballs. That's why they're so good in the major leagues. That's why they dominate the World Baseball Classic, because none of these hitters get a chance to see these guys all year long. And then they come into the major leagues, they see them 1 year, and then the second and third years, they figure them out. They start seeing them better, and they start hitting the ball all over the field. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Senga. I don't know if that's going to happen with Yamamoto. And look at Ohtani. Ohtani pitched better this year than he did the last 2 years. So maybe Ohtani's starting to figure out how to pitch against these hitters in the major leagues. But Ohtani's also a professional, you know what I mean? So these guys are coming into the league. Look at Senga. Senga came into the league at the age of 27, 28 years old.
Yeah.
And with the torque that he had, he became a professional Japanese pitcher at 17 years old, Senga. So that's 10 years of torque on his arm significantly. So that's what, if I was a Met fan, I would worry about this.
Right, especially when you have to rely on it being a major focal point of your team, because the Mets were supposed to be rumored for so many different other pitchers this offseason, and obviously they're going to be in a rumor for all the big names because Uncle Stevie could pay everybody too. And what did they end up getting? Not much of anything, because they had to trade for Adrian Hauser, who I like as a backup guy.
Still believe Corbin Burns could be a Met.
Okay. No,
I do. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. The Orioles have new ownership and they're going to pay Corbin Burns. I don't believe that, because Uncle Stevie will open up his pockets, and if he wants Corbin Burns, he'll get Corbin Burns. If he wants Fried, he'll get Fried. He could get whoever he wants. And I believe the Mets next year are going to open up their pockets wide open. I believe they're going to go after 2 pitchers. I think they're going to go after Juan Soto, and they might even go after another hitter.
Yeah.
So I could see them spending probably around $700 or $800 million just off of Juan Soto. You're talking about maybe $2 billion next year that I could see Uncle Stevie spending in the offseason.
Well, they have to figure it out with pitching, though, because the pitching is not very good in the farm system as it is. Most of the Mets prospects that they traded for from the 2 deals, the Scherzer deal and the Verlander deal, were all top hitters. Acuna's a shortstop, the 2 outfielders from the Astros. Those aren't pitchers. And that was the main thing I had an issue with the deadline. Even though the Mets got good value for these old guys that didn't pitch well, they pitched like third starters, as much as Snug wants to admit that Max Scherzer pitched well last year. He didn't. And they got good value, but they didn't get any pitching.
He did not pitch well last year. I understand maybe they got a lot back for him. They did for what he was pitching last year. They got a lot back for him. And they got a lot back for Justin Verlander, who, by the way, wasn't the same pitcher. So, and I said that when they brought in Max Scherzer, I'm not going to go back to the analyst that we've had on the show, and she was fighting with me and arguing with me that Max Scherzer was going to be special. I did not believe that, and I didn't believe Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander was better than Max Scherzer. He was better than Max Scherzer was for the Mets, but what they got, what the Mets got for for Justin Verlander was fantastic. So we'll see what these prospects turn out to be. Sometimes they don't turn out to be anything, even though they're on a list of the team's top list of their top 10 players and top 10 prospects. I don't know what. I know what Justin Verlander is going to be this year. I know what Max Scherzer is going to be. I think they're both guys at the tail end of their career. They're Hall of Famers. They're tail end.
Right.
Senga was going to be a very important piece to this Mets rotation. Very, very important. When you look at their rotation, and I know Fish had it up there, their rotation is garbage. They have nothing. What scares you? Kitana? Kitana pitched well last year.
He's fine as a second guy.
He's an old man. He's 37 years old. You're going to depend on a 37-year-old to be your number 1 guy? Luis Severino? I hope Luis has a good year. I don't care if he's not a Yankee. I want to see Luis Severino have a good year. Maybe he steps up and he helps out. They bring in Sean Manaea. He hasn't been a good pitcher since Oakland.
Right.
Well,
I wanted for the Mets at the time when he entered free agency, but not anymore.
Adrian Hauser?
Back end
Tyler
guy.
McGill?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
And then there's David Peterson's a wild card.
I like David Peterson.
If he pitches well like he did in the second half, that's going to help. But
I like David Peterson. I like him a lot.
But that's the point. You're gambling got so many wild cards. McGill is the same kind of thing. He pitches well for like 3 starts and then he disappears. And Hauser's all right as a 4th guy, but like that's what you're trusting.
You were banking on Senga. You were banking on him to be your number 1 guy this year. And now I don't care what David Stern says. You have to look at another pitcher. You have to. You can't go into the season with this rotation unless you're trying to lose. Is that what they're trying to do? I don't know. Because if I was a Met fan, I'm not going to the game. I'm not paying. I'm not buying hot dogs or hamburgers or whatever the hell you're selling.